Hello! This video is a tutorial for the website, the Iowa Water Quality Information System, or for short, the IWQIS. To be able to find this website, you can either search the website name or the acronym. We've also linked the website and a written guide to accompany this video in the description of this video. There's a few interesting links regarding the website on this main page, but the bulk of the website is when we click this button here to launch the IWQIS. So let's go ahead and do that. So right away, it brings you to a map of Iowa and the different probes that are measuring water quality around the state. There's a legend down the lower left. You'll be able to zoom in and zoom out as you please up here in the upper left, that is. But the bulk of what we'll be able to use is on the right side here, these different menus. I'll gloss through these all quickly, but the first one here is the most important, the water quality conditions. So you'll be able to look at different conditions in the water, so nitrates, phosphates, temperature, etc. I'll come back to this later, as this is the main part of this website. There are also different patterns for weather that you can overlay on top of this map. Current rainfall, so as I record this, it's not raining. Forecast, let's see if it's going to be raining. Maybe in some parts of the state, but probably not too much. No snow because it's the middle of summer as I record this as well. Community view. This is a really neat view of how you can look at specific watersheds, particularly upstream of a specific place that you want to look at. So let's look at the Iowa River, for example. If we click on the Iowa River, we're looking specifically at things upstream of the Iowa River as it runs through Iowa City. And here we get a good view of the main tributaries that feed into that area. And you see which water quality stations are actually in that area. In this case, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 about. So a lot of these up in Cedar Rapids area, Des Moines and Ames aren't actually feeding into the system. So we know what is important to look at and what is not important to look at. In that menu as well, you can look at other rivers of your choice, different gauges specifically. The next menu has a few other sources, a few other gauges, that show other information that don't necessarily relate to water quality, but are interesting nonetheless. So stream gauges and rain gauges, that sort of thing, they're mainly gauging the water height, as well as the reservoirs, groundwater wells, and soil moisture gauges. As you can see, there are a lot around Iowa. There's a lot in this watershed that I picked earlier as well. These don't tell anything about the water quality again, but simply about the discharge, so the amount of water going through an area, as well as the current water height. Just because there's a lot, let's unselect those for now. This is another interesting toolbox down here. First is a distance and area calculator. So let's zoom in really far so I can show this off. I want to look at the width of the Iowa River over here by the University of Iowa. Well, I can select one side of the river, puts a point down, and the other side of the river. And right here, hidden behind my recording stuff, it's a little bit hidden, but it tells you the distance in feet, in this case, between the 2 points I selected. So now it's 253.6 feet, which seems about reasonable. This is a really neat tool because this website is able to look at past water conditions. So for example, if there's a flood, how wide would the river be in that case? Another neat thing is we can select multiple points on here. So let's say I select another point over here, another point over here. We can drag these over so they are working a little bit more in our favor. There we go. Now we can see the surface area of some specific body of water that we're looking at, and we can adjust it to shape the river a bit more if we so please. This one is really cool, the raindrop flow tracker, which shows if I put a drop of water in some specific spot, what path does it actually take to get to the nearest flowing body of water? So let's say it rains right in the hospital system. Where is it going to go? Let's see, it's interacting a little bit oddly with the area calculator. It flows all the way down here to the river and then eventually down to the Mississippi. Let's deselect both of those for now. And then these last two things. This adds a few other layers if you want, so you can see county layers. If we zoom out a little bit, that might be more obvious to see. Here's the counties in Iowa. You can see city boundaries, levees, etc. And last but not least, in this last menu, if we want to look at, say, two different map conditions at the same time, we can activate the split map view. So now it's essentially loading the website twice. One where we can do one thing, let's zoom in here, and another where we can look at something else at the same time. I think that's pretty neat. But now let's look at the most important part of this website, which is real-time water quality data around the state of Iowa. So I've reset the page so we can look at this a bit more clearly without distractions in the other menus. These are the different water quality conditions that the website measures. So nitrates and nitrites as nitrogen, orthophosphates, so we can think of this as phosphates or phosphorus, water temperature, pH, dissolved oxygen, specific conductance, which is a proxy for the ions in water, and turbidity, essentially how clear is the water. To be clear, not all of these sensors show every single one of these attributes. So what's currently showing are all the sensors that measure nitrates. How many sensors show pH, for example? Let's change to that. Not as many. So this is one of the drawbacks of this website, is that there's not too many points to pick from. What it does have strengths in, though, is that it shows this water quality, it updates this very regularly on the hour. So let's choose one of these sources that actually measures all of these data points. I'm going to choose the Coralville Data Center. And so what pops up in the upper left here is a little sneak peek of what we can see when we click on both more data and annual here at the bottom. There's a little graph that shows nitrogen over time. If we want to see this in more detail, let's click more data, of course. And so what we see is an hourly measurement of the nitrogen going through that Coralville water gauge over time. So currently it is 2.79 or 2.8, I suppose it rounds, milligrams per liter. And we can see in this view, it goes back in the last 15 days. If we want to switch to look at different aspects of what this gauge measures, here's a little menu down here. We can look at discharge. So it looks like there was some more water going through the gauge in the last few days. We can look at pH, look at temperature, for example, and all of these measure for the past 15 days. If we want to look at more historical data, then we need to get X out of this window and go back to annual. So now we're seeing all of the nitrogen data, it reverted back to nitrogen, in the Coralville water quality gauge this year, 2023. And of course, it doesn't measure in the winter because the stream is either not flowing or it's frozen or maybe a mixture of both. If we want to compare it to past years, though, there's buttons up here for 2022, 2021, 2020, and 2019. The data on this website doesn't really go back before 2019. That's perhaps another drawback of this. And this is a little bit messy to look at, so let's close all of them except the past 2 years. So now we're comparing the nitrogen going through the stream at different parts, comparing the past 2 years. So March of 2023, and if we hover over some specific point, let's say June 11th, as I am now, we can see that nitrogen this year is a little less than half of what it was last year, which is a good thing. To reiterate, the point of this website is not for super duper in-depth water quality data in Iowa. It's about seeing regularly updated data in a few key spots. And I would say one of the strengths of this website is that it's really user-friendly. I can pick any area that I want. Let's look at this area, and it makes a graph for me of the quality over time. There's no need for going into Excel or Google Sheets and doing some really in-depth analysis. That's always a strength, and that'll be covered in future videos in the series. But if that's not something that you want to do, then this website would be a great asset to you. If you have any questions, of course, there's a written guide in the description, as I said at the beginning, and feel free to leave any comments if you have additional questions that does not cover. Thanks.